Welcome to another week of Hawk Talk. I'm Seth Morkirky.
And I'm Susanna Moberg.
It's been a busy week here at DSU, and we have a coach with us kind of talking about some sports. So go ahead and introduce yourself, where you're from, and what you do at DSU.
I'm Thad O'Donnell. I'm the golf coach for both men's and the women's, and the chair of our physical education department from Baker, Montana.
Baker, Montana. And you attended DSU as well?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've been a busy man all through your career here at DSU. Now you're the golf coach. I've been the golf coach the past couple years. The golf team just went to Jamestown a couple weeks ago. Talk us through kind of what happened. It was the first showing. Didn't really show too much improvement over the summer, but it was just the first meet.
Yeah, definitely the first meet is, especially having new people in your program. It's a tester, and the summer leading up to that first meet, they played all summer long, relaxed, and then all of a sudden now you're under some stress situation, and in golf, tension kills your golf swing. So definitely it's a learning curve on handling pressure, and so once they get in that competitive mode, it changes things.
Yeah, and then just transitioning to the past couple of days, you guys were in Billings. Weather was pretty good, and the weather was actually kind of bad in Jamestown. Rained a little bit, so you had some nice weather in Billings. So talk us through those past 3 days and how they went.
Yeah, Billings obviously played football there on Saturday, and we actually have one of the guys on our team plays football. So he had a long week in Billings this week. But we go to Billings, we do a practice round where they get a layout of the course and how the greens are, and obviously courses are different all over the country, and obviously weather plays a factor, but just in a course layout, some courses are going to be better for the longer hitters, some going to be better for different types of players. So the kids got to figure out how they're going to play holes, and then obviously the big thing is putting. 40% of your score is putting, so how the greens are, how fast they are, and obviously we're in our region in Dickinson, our greens are a lot slower than most places. When you get into private courses, they're a lot faster. So that takes an adjustment, so they basically have 1 day to figure that out. And then you go into the weekend and start playing, and we played with MSU Billings and Concordia out of Portland, Oregon, and they're a really good team. A couple Division II teams. So it was a lot better competition than we wanted, but obviously budget-wise, it's a great place for us to play.
Right. Yeah, and I talked to Jarrett Lee a little bit. That's the one you're talking about, who plays football as well. He said you guys had the lowest score that you've ever had, or a team that has had since you've been here. So that's pretty impressive. What is it like to have those guys kind of improve from the Jamestown meet, and then even from the first day at Billings, seeing all those things?
Well, it's a heck of a lot easier to coach when they're doing well. You roll up to them and they're all happy about how things are going on. And I think you do your best coaching when they're playing their worst. Obviously, it's trying to bring any sport. You're gonna do your best coaching. So when they're playing well, it's basically just try to stay out of their way and let them do what they're doing, and not let them get overconfident and not let them try to do things that they're not capable of doing. And some of those, Jarrett's a good example. He was so consistent this weekend, and every time I come up to him, he'd be going different clubs. He could hit anything he wants. I mean, he has a driver to a 1-iron. He hits over 300 yards. Wow. And I said, why would you want to hit anything? Why would you ever hit your driver? You hit your straightest one. So it's a game. I mean, he can hit any one of those three, and I think he pulls one out over the other just out of boredom. But he had a good weekend. I mean, very consistent. So when they're doing well this weekend, and obviously the team that won it shot 9 under. We're not at that level at all, but very good about where we were at. We had Carter Klein ended up shooting even in one of his rounds, and they all left strokes out there that they wanted to get back, and but they did a good job this weekend. I was very proud of how they did.
Yeah, and Jarrett and Carter, those are the two kind of veterans on the team. They're the only two boys who are still there, or who are here from the last team from last year. And you have 2 freshmen, and on the girls' side you have 3 seniors, and then kind of a younger team. Talk about kind of the camaraderie that they have within their men's and women's teams, and then as a team.
Yeah, I think you're going to get that. Especially in a sport of golf. I mean, they go out and practice together things, but it's the trips that really brings groups together. played password on the way. If you ever play password, you figure out people right away, their mentality, you know, their intelligence on how you play. So those are the things that really bind the group together, and things that happen. We blew a tire that ripped the fender right off our trailer. So, you know, you learn a lot of things about everybody. Some of the girls never changed a tire before.
Yeah.
So you get, those are the things that happen that aren't involved in the actual sport, that happen in any sport. But I think golf-wise, they learn, you know, there's a lot of little tricks. Mentality is a big thing, how they handle adversity, how they handle pressure. And for me as a coach, figuring out what pushes their buttons. Some people you can't even talk to and they get out of control, and other people you got to kick in the butt. So learning those things on the new people, and knowing the veterans of, all right, hey, you got to step it up, you know, and things like that. So and they've done a great job. I think Jared's talked the most he's ever talked this year. He's really changed in his attitude and his being a part of the group. So that makes a big difference, and especially when you play well. You definitely want your better players to be your best team leaders. When that doesn't happen, that's tough. So, and I think we have that in our group, especially on the men's side, and we have 4. You take 4 scores, so there's no chance for mistakes. And one of our freshmen had a bad first round, and he come back and takes 30 strokes off his second round. And that's some of those teammates not saying, oh, you're all right, you know, giving him some crap, you know, talking to him and getting him to come around a little bit, and that definitely helps.
Yeah, and across the board from men's and women's team, you have a couple players who do other sports as well. You know, Jarrett being and Jeremiah both playing football, so they got to balance that out. What does kind of that balance take, and how do they balance things between the two different sports? You got basketball players, golfers, football players, and they do a lot, and that's kind of the story.
Yeah, it's being flexible. I mean, you know, I've coached 2 sports until taking over golf. I coached 2 sports my whole career at Dickinson for 20-some years, so I understand that balance aspect of it. And we don't put the pressure on them. We know they're going to try their hardest. They're going to do the best they can do. So it's never effort for me out of the athletes. So I always know when you're in college, it's effort that they're giving you every single time. You never doubt that. It's that ability to focus on the right things. They have so much time to practice. What are you going to focus on? I mean, you know, I always use the golf club, but balance it on your finger. If you look at your finger and try balancing, you can't balance in it. You look at the end of the club, you can balance it all day long. So it's focusing on the right thing. So that's part of balancing it and telling them, all right, where's our weakest link of our game? There's where we need to spend our 45 minutes, rather than just hitting driver 300 yards every single time. And you know, those things are going to come to you when you need to feel good about yourself. You can hit a couple of those and then come back and work on what you need to work on. Yeah,
I love that. Love that analogy of balance. That's really great. You guys have had 2 tournaments. You have 2 more tournaments. The last one you go to Rapid, and then you have your last one here at Bully Pulpit or nearby. What is that like to kind of have that home field advantage? Sort of, you know, these guys are from around the area. They've golfed at Bully Pulpit. What's it like to have that?
It can be a blessing, or it can also be a villain for you, because sometimes they put too much pressure on themselves that inning. So, and golf is such a mental game. You know, the course is 6 inches between your ears, 90% of it. You know, because they don't forget how to swing. They don't forget how to make contact. You know, and it goes for any sport. You know, we know the mechanics of it. It's the thought process that it comes at that second. And you know, I tell our kids, you know, a golf swing is 1.4 seconds. It's less than 2 minutes around. You have to focus. So, but it takes crucial amount of focus to do the right thing at that time. So at home, it's nice. Our kids love the course. We don't get to play it near as much as we want to, but it definitely is a course that if you played before, you have advantages, because there's a lot of blind shots, and not so much blind shots, but landing zones that you want to put this ball into to give you a good look at the green. I know Jared Lee is, you know, a lot of those guys have shot real, Carter, they've shot real low, and we've had practice rounds out there. Get into tournament, then it becomes that stress situation of, you know, if you have confidence in yourself and go for those shots, and risk reward is high in Medora, so you can go from 70 to 90 very fast. That is what I've heard. Last question, Coach. You've been here, you know, a couple years, quite a few years between your schooling and your coaching. It is our Centennial Year. What are some of the changes that you've seen? Some of the things that you've noticed haven't changed at all, and what do you project for the future? I've seen all the name changes except from normal school to Dickinson State College. So I've seen all the name changes. You know, I think it's they always talk about family and things, but I think it's been there since I started here. When I started in school in '86, and have been here and went to grad school, and came back after a couple years. But I think it's the people, the community, it's the school, and I think you go to any community that has a close-knit community, they always say that. But it really is. You build that, you get people around you that have that mentality, and support is important. I know we go through a lot of different things over the years, but I think the basic, you go out and talk to our alumni, and you talk to the people that have gone to Dickinson, it's still talk about the memories of being here, and the trips, the dorms, the classes, all the professors. It's that family. It's the easiest way to describe it. Yeah. But it's real complex in some places too. But I think we're on the right track. I definitely think we're going in the right direction. I always said we're always gonna, at some point, we're gonna have the right people in the right spots. And that's just a juggling act. I think you look at our campus and our campus size, we have people doing multiple things. And I think that's a plus for us. Yeah. If that's, you only have one person doing one job, then all of a sudden they ask to be doing something, well, that's not my job. You don't get that really here, because everybody wears different hats in our department, in the school, in athletics. And I think that carries a lot. It makes that school seem a little more family-like. Yeah, I agree. Well, Coach, it's a pleasure to have you on. Pleasure to have you at DSU. Thank you for coming on. We'll be back with another coach right after this.
Life is full of many successes, achievements, stages. Every year we grow, things change, and pretty soon we realize we want and need to do more. When you're ready for that next step, Dickinson State University will get you there. Find out how at dsublue.com.
Welcome back to Hawk Talk. We have a coach with us who's kind of been all around the area. Go ahead and introduce yourself, what you do at DSU and where you're from.
My name is Russell McCarville. It's my first year at DSU. I coach the running backs. I'm also Associate Athletic Director, have some duties in that area. I'm originally from Glendive, Montana. I went to Montana State University, and I've coached in several places in Montana. Also coached at Carson City, Nevada. Spent 1 year at Carroll College. This past year I finished up my 30th year of teaching high school math and retired from that, so I'm excited to be here full-time and coming to the football offices and the athletic offices full-time.
Yeah, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
You've been a busy man. You've been coaching for 32 years, high school, college, probably some Pee-wee in there, coaching your kids too. Talk about what it takes to be a coach, just in general.
Well, I think one of the most important aspects is you've got to love kids. You got to love people. You want to, your number one goal is to help people, help athletes try to be the best, try to be as great as they can be, try to take them a little bit beyond where they think they can be. So, that along with the strategy of football are my two favorite things about it. But certainly working with young men, young athletes is my favorite part of it.
Yeah, and the offense, defense, special teams, you kind of had a role in a lot of those things. What has been your favorite part of football, if you can say, between the offense, defense, and special teams? And how do you decide? How does that decision come?
Well, I guess I've always been a little more partial to offense.
Right.
So being an offensive coordinator, even when I was a head coach, I generally called the plays. So that's probably been my favorite part of it. But I have been a defensive coordinator doing a little bit of special teams here. And when you're the head coach at a high school program, you're involved in everything, right, which would include everything outside of it. I think, I'm sure you visited with Coach Stanton at a time, but there's so much at being a head coach that requires things outside of those offense, defense, and special teams that are behind the scenes that take up a lot of time, and you do a lot with that part of it also.
Yeah. You mentioned you were a college coach at Carroll. I think that was the year they made the playoffs, actually won the national championship, their string of national championships. Went from college to high school, and now you're back into college. What has been the transition been like from college to high school, and now you're here?
Yeah, at Carroll it was year 2005. It was the fourth straight state or national title. They won 2 more after that for 6 for Coach Van Diest. We actually beat a really good Dickinson squad that year in Helena. They had a really good team. It was a tight game. But in terms of the transition, you know, the best thing about it is just the accountability. I think the college athlete has a little more accountability. They're a little more in tune to what they need to do, and you're trying to help them in a different phase of life also. You know, when you're a freshman in college, it's a major change for you, and you know, you have to learn about your own personal responsibility and how do I juggle, even though I have less classes per day, I've got a lot more work in each, and so I've got to juggle that, and you know, we're trying to help them juggle those kinds of things. I think Coach Stanton really sets the pace for the entire squad and how it's going to be done, and does a great job of really trying to mold the entire player and not just the football aspect of it. And so that part's been great. You know, I knew some of those things about Coach Stanton when I came here, and I think it's even better than I thought it would be in terms of how he tries to really get athletes to be their best both on and off the field.
Yeah, I agree.
You talked about that transition for students from college or into college as freshmen, and you have a son who's a freshman on the football team this year. What's that like, coaching him? What's that experience like?
Well, I've coached him a lot over the years in youth baseball and then in high school, and I would say that 99% of the time it's awesome. Every once in a while, just like any athlete, you have disagreements about the way things should go, but you know, I love having him around there. It's great to see him. I probably talk to him less than people think because he's got his thing to do and I've got my thing to do, and so it's, you know, when we're on the practice field, I really don't have a lot of interaction with him. He's playing wide receiver, which isn't the position group I coach, and he's on the scout team, so he's kind of on the other end of the field. But admittedly, you know, it's nice to be able to walk by him and check in with him at the stretch line or something like that. But he certainly has to create his own path. He signed here and was recruited here before any opportunity came up for me when there was movement on the coaching staff. And I actually checked with him because I didn't want him to think that I was trying to follow him or step on his toes. And he smiled at me and said, well, they recruited me and gave me a scholarship, so isn't it kind of like I got you the job, Dad? And so, you know, at that point I knew it'd be okay. And again, you know, he has to do his thing. And as far as I can tell, I think he's enjoying life here, and he's made a lot of friends. And it's a very welcoming place. I think one of the things that goes under the radar a little bit is, you know, when you have a lot of great upperclassmen that are supportive of underclassmen on a football team rather than, you know, maybe at some places where you're, you know, kind of looked upon as you know, we're trying to just move on with, you got to do your own thing, whereas here it's a very supportive environment. I think the position coaches do a good job of creating that. Coach Stanton does a great job of creating that. And it feeds down to the players, and Seth, being one of the leaders for us, you know, would attest to that our older guys are great to the younger guys, and you know, it's not that way at every place. And so I think for him, that's helpful and helpful for all freshmen.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to do that. I love welcoming those guys. The team is now 1-1. We beat Jamestown that first week, traveled to Rocky this past weekend and fell to them. Looking ahead at this next game, we're traveling on the road, big 11 to 12-hour trip. What are the keys to success in that game?
Well, I think, you know, anytime you come off a loss, one of the keys to success is taking care of what you're good at. And I think that's offensively a big focus for us this week, as you've noticed. We're trying to make sure that we're, you know, going to be better at what we should be better at, not just worry about our opponent. And then, of course, it's a long trip. Yeah. And so, you know, you want to stay relaxed, but not on the side of, you know, you still have to have some focus along the way. And we'll have a walkthrough in Fargo and some meetings. And so there'll be things that need to be done to prepare to win. I think this team showed that last week we certainly traveled okay. I don't think the issue of us not playing as well as we would have liked to have. I think we played certainly a great physical, fast opponent, and that, you know, feeds into sometimes when you don't play your best, it's because somebody else is playing well, and they certainly played well.
Yeah, it's a tough game. It's a good game. And looking at, you know, you mentioned you had that AD job. You're kind of assistant AD. Coach Stanton is busy during this football season, so he kind of shares the role with you and Coach Fleury. What has that been like? I'm not sure if you've been an AD in the past, but you've certainly handled a lot of sports, so I'm sure you're pretty great at it.
Yeah, well, certainly Coach Fleury is really, she's amazing. She knows the ins and outs of, you know, NEIA and also our athletic department. So really, a lot of times I might just stand near her desk while she's doing some work trying to learn, and hopefully that I'll be able to take some pressure off in the winter and spring.
Yeah.
There'll be some game supervision things and then some things with the foundation here and there. So hopefully my role will be just to relieve a little bit of pressure from some things for the other coaches, especially Coach Fleury and Coach Stanton. Coach Miller also very helpful with a lot of things in terms of eligibility and those kinds of things. You know, those people are veterans of DSU and know a lot of the ins and outs, and so they're great resources.
Yeah. Well, you've only had a short time here, just a couple months, but looking back on the past couple months, what's been the highlight of being at DSU?
Well, without a doubt, it's the people. You know, I know that people will say that, but certainly it's a great place. The people, I enjoy coming to work with our staff. We have a fun staff to work with. We have fun guys to work with. And then extend that to the entire athletic department. You know, we spend a lot of time in that building where you're walking in and out, you're seeing a lot of people. And so it's great to have a lot of people that you're working with that you enjoy. And everybody's been very welcoming. And then the community itself, you know, I've kind of reconnected and touched base with a few people from my hometown that I know live here, and I've met some others. The DSU alumni here in town are awesome, as you know. Yep. They're great supporters of football and all athletics, but in our arena in football, you know, those guys really root for your success, and they're very supportive. And when you go to different functions, they are fun to visit with, and they just want what's best for DSU and for the players and for coaches. And so without a doubt, you know, the best part of it has been the people. And we have great, you know, as you walk around campus, we have a great campus area, and I know once football's over in the springtime, I'll get out to get around a little more, but football, we're kind of tied into the Weinbergen and spend a lot of time down there, but just great people. That's my favorite thing by far.
Yeah, well, Coach, you've added to the greatness. It's been a pleasure to have you on campus. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. We'll be back recapping this past week and looking forward to the next right after this. Well, welcome back to Hawk Talk. You know, Hawk Talk is sponsored by Consolidated. It's also sponsored by the DSU Heritage Foundation, and they provide scholarships, you know, academic, athletic, music, all of the scholarships really at DSU. And we wanted to highlight our most recent scholarship endowment. That's the Dale and Barbara Jorgensen Family Rodeo Endowment. And it's in memory of Dale, who was on the first rodeo team here at DSU, which is incredible. Yeah. He participated in bull riding, bareback, saddle bronc, steer wrestling, and was a team roper. So he was was a busy man.
Very active. Yeah,
very active here at DSU. And his wife, Barb, and their sons, Tom, Tim, and their daughter, Joan, are creating this endowment in memory of him.
Awesome. Speaking a little bit about rodeo, rodeo was away last weekend, and they placed pretty well. So Lacey Forsness took second in breakaway, and Clay Jorgensen, who's actually the grandson of the couple with this scholarship, he took second in the short and go bareback.
Yeah, they had a busy weekend. You know, they traveled. We talked to them last week. They traveled really well, which is hard to do. And they'll be traveling again. They're heading to Nebraska this weekend. North Platte, I believe. So they'll be,
Yeah.
on the
On the
road,
road again.
as always. In golf, as we talked to Coach, they were at MSUB. The women, I believe Braylon Riggins was the top finisher for the women, and then Jarrett Lee and Carter Klein were the top finishers for the guys. So they really improved from the last one, like we talked, and that was really great. Their next tournament is in Rapid City, and then they have the Bully Pulpit run right after that.
Yeah. And we have lots of teams that were away these past few weeks. So football was in Rocky this past weekend, and they lost 21-10. And you guys are traveling again this coming weekend.
Yep.
You guys have a long road trip ahead of you.
Yeah, we talked to Coach, that, like he said, traveling is very key. It's a 12-hour trip, I believe. And so that'll be really, really important to travel well and to come back from that loss. It was a tough game. We were in the game pretty much the whole time, I think, and even had the game won in the first half, but just couldn't quite finish, and we will. I think we'll see those guys in the playoffs. And then looking at cross country, they went to the Dragon Twilight last weekend, competed in that evening run, 8:10 and 8:30.
Long day for them as well.
And the women took fourth, the guys took seventh, I believe. Lisa Townsend was the top finisher in the women's side, and Rodney Henry was the top finisher on the guys' side.
Yep. And volleyball also was away this past weekend in Jamestown, and they're back this weekend with their Stanton Strong Night on Friday, their first home game of the season.
Yep, first home game this night is in memory of Dan Stanton, and they'll be handing out T-shirts, I believe. So you should all come. If you have a Friday night open, come and check out that game. It starts at 6 p.m., I believe, and see the first game for the Lady Blue Hawks. If you want to check any more scores, any more results, you can always look on dsubluehawks.com, and we'll be back next week. But until then, Hawks are up.